Welcome to Inside City Hall for Thursday, April 17th, 2025. I'm Errol Lewis. We begin tonight with an exclusive interview with New York State Attorney General Letitia James. As we have been reporting, President Trump ramped up his feud with James yesterday, targeting her specifically over alleged falsified real estate records. James has been at the forefront of the legal fight against the Trump administration on multiple issues. She joins us now with more, and we'll see if we can straighten a lot of this out. Good to see you, Ms. James. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Errol.
Absolutely. What is going on here? Did anybody contact you before this letter went out accusing you of this, that, and the other and making a criminal referral about real estate transactions?
What a way for a so-called journalist to kick off an interview with Letitia James, the Attorney General for New York State, somebody who used obscure matters of law in order to sue President Trump for a huge sum of money related to how he valued his assets during, again, real estate-related loans, to say, what do you make of all this nonsense? Did anybody just contact you in order to talk to you before they sent this ridiculous criminal referral over to the Department of Justice? You're an innocent Baba Angel Aladdin, Letitia James, and the reason we know that is because we over here at Spectrum News are doing the good reporting. Now, for those of you who are unaware, for those of you who are uninitiated, Spectrum News used to be called New York One, used to be a thing related to Time Warner, which recently changed its name to Spectrum, so it is one of the worst companies ever, putting out a news outlet that works in conjunction with the Democratic Party of New York, and Letitia James decided to do this interview with this particular guy because he is a huge supporter of hers, because he's not a journalist at all whatsoever. He is somebody who is sucking up to power, and that is what we see on display right here, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
No, not at all. And let me just say to all New Yorkers and to all Americans, the allegations are baseless. The allegations are nothing more than a revenge tour. And as you mentioned, my office was successful in securing a $454 million judgment against Donald Trump and others for exaggerating the value of his assets. He engaged in a pattern and practice of fraud. And the interest is accruing each and every day while the case is on appeal in the First Department. It's important that individuals know that this is nothing more than the continuation of the tour. He went after law firms, universities, immigrants, women. Thousands of federal employees right now are unemployed. Our government is in chaos and in disarray.
So right here, Letitia James says that the allegations against her are completely baseless. It's part of the evil Orange Man's revenge tour, and it doesn't change the fact that Letitia James went out and got a very significant judgment against the evil Orange Man, which, by the way, is totally fine for her to say. She's allowed to defend herself. They're just accusations right now, allegations really, or as the super mayor would say, allegations.
False allegations and not facts.
So I would expect Letitia James, the person who is being accused of this, or not technically formally accused of this, to respond by saying there's nothing to it. That's what people typically say in these kind of situations, but it is the journalist, the guy who actually is interviewing her, who's supposed to speak truth to power, as we're told time and time again, who should follow up with the documentation related to this. But he does anything but that.
Let me follow up of some of what's in this this letter. It says according to media reports, which for us in the media is kind of a red flag, meaning that it seems to be based on some social media posts that I know were made by partisan political actors. But
so right off the top, I have major problems with this question from this Spectrum News so-called journalist, because he says, it says right here in the letter, which is a big red flag for people in the media, that they're basing this on media reports. And I find that to be a big red flag for everybody, because I know I do propaganda in the media. I'm sucking up to Letitia James right now, so I don't trust anyone at all whatsoever when they do any reporting, because I don't understand what journalism actually is. And then he says, there's some social media posts by some partisan actors. What he's talking about is the Sam Antar post, the Crazy Eddie guy.
Get those earmuffs off! And listen to this. Crazy Eddie's Christmas blowout blitz is going on now with the lowest sale prices ever on receivers, speakers, turntables, compact disc players, stereo rack systems, anything and everything in audio equipment. Remember, we are not undersold. We will not be undersold. We cannot be undersold. And we mean it. You don't have to ski cross country to get the lowest sale prices on audio equipment, because Crazy Eddie's Christmas audio blowout blitz is going on now at a Crazy Eddie superstore near you. Crazy Eddie, his prices are...
that we covered in a previous video. But again, it's not just his posts and it's not just media reports. You see, the thing that Sam decided to do, Crazy Eddie, I know this is going to sound pretty crazy to this so-called journalist, was go into the financial filings of Letitia James, look up what she wrote down on these forms, and realize that what she put there does not match reality. That's what happened. So it's not according to media reports. It's not according to partisan actors, although it kind of is according to partisan actors, because we're talking about Letitia James' own filing, and she is in fact a partisan actor. That's the source of the information right there. So instead of downplaying it and dismissing it as, oh, referencing media reports and of course partisan social media people, is pull up the documentation with Letitia James' signature on it and ask her why she signed these documents in this way. So we have a 1983 mortgage application where her father, who is in fact her father, everybody can confirm this, is listed as her husband in order to get preferable rates, because husband and wife have a better advantage at getting mortgages than when you try to buy a property with your parent. Everybody understands this, everybody knows this, and considering that Letitia James is somebody who went after Trump and is still celebrating the large judgment that she got against him by using an obscure portion of law to go after inaccuracies on his financial filings, this is doubly a crucial question for her. Now, technically, the statute of limitations has expired on that particular crime because it was 1983, but we have more recent things like the fact that she has a building that, by the way, has 5 apartment units in it, and on certain mortgage documents, it's listed as 4 or fewer. And the reason for that is in New York State, you need to get a commercial building loan for something that has 5 units and above, but when it's 4 units and below, you can actually get better loans because you can do a private federally backed loan. That's what Letitia James appeared to have done, but this guy doesn't put up the documents. In fact, he asked her the question right here, and just to show you how terrible of a journalist he is, I'm going to play that segment so you can get something that he may have missed.
Just let me ask you about some of the specifics in the letter. They're saying that your house in Brooklyn is a legal 5-family and the mortgage on it is for a 4-family house. Is that true?
So let me just say that, Errol, you know, as any good attorney, I will not litigate this case in a camera. It's important that we will respond to these allegations at the appropriate time and in an appropriate way. But I will not go back and forth with respect to these baseless allegations. I am more focused again on standing up for the freedoms, the liberties, and for the rule of law in the state of New York.
So this guy right here, allegedly a journalist, asked Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, after this controversy just dropped, to which, by the way, we have documentation on the size of this building that anybody could check for themselves, whether or not she has a 4-unit building or a 5-unit building, because on her paperwork, it says 4 or fewer, depending on other filings, but in reality, it's a 5-unit building. Letitia James refused to answer that question. Letitia James said, oh, I'm not going to litigate this in front of a camera. I mean, I'm going to go on this interview right now, and I'm going to let you basically fluff me throughout the course of the interview. I'm going to say all the allegations are baseless against me, but I'm not going to directly deny them in camera right here, because that's not what a real legitimate lawyer does. And then this absolute ball washer for Letitia James decides to say, well, I think they were going for a headline, and that's exactly what they got.
I was under the impression by all of this that what they were really looking for is what they got, which is a headline saying, Tish James is under a criminal investigation. Is that pretty much what's going on here?
Yeah, that's what they got.
Again, pathetic in every possible way. But in addition to that, I would just point out that Letitia James is like, we're not going to litigate this in the media. We're not going to address these allegations in public. I'm the Attorney General. I'm a professional. I would never talk about legal matters in such a haphazard way. This is the same woman who, while she was campaigning for Attorney General, talked about her goal as somebody who would be Attorney General was to sue Trump into bankruptcy. Again, this is the Democratic primary, August of 2018. Before she's in office, she's a New York City public advocate at this moment in time, promising to weaponize the New York State Attorney General's offices to sue Trump into bankruptcy.
I've taken on powerful interests like developers. I've taken on legislators. I've taken on landlords. I've taken on powerful interests in the city of New York because I believe in a good fight. And right now, what we need is someone who understands that you should not be afraid, not be fearful of Donald Trump. We should take him down. We should sue him all the way to bankruptcy. We should investigate his business interests. We should investigate his business holdings. We should investigate whether or not why why he was once in debt and now in a position to purchase all of this property. We can do that because I've been trained to do that, and I will do that at the same time knowing the Office of Attorney General and its powers and its responsibilities and its duties. My name is Letitia James, and I plan on being the next Attorney General of the state of New York. God bless you and thank you.
So the audacity for her to say, oh, I would never talk about this kind of stuff in such a casual way. I'm a very appropriate lawyer, lady, so show me some respect because you are quite literally my dog. You're licking my feet throughout the course of this interview. So yeah, if I say I'm not going to answer a question, you have to pretend like I just presented you irrefutable evidence that I didn't do nothing.
That's what they got. And it's unfortunate that you have some of these right-wing conservative individuals who are camped out in front of my home and in front of the homes of my relatives in Virginia, harassing them each and every day. And it's unfortunate, knocking on the doors of my neighbors and the neighbors of my relatives in the state of Virginia. And it is nothing more than a headline, nothing more than, again, retaliation against all of the actions that I have taken successfully against Donald Trump.
So again, Letitia is just ranting right here. She's saying it's nothing more than a headline. It's retaliation against her and her family. And it's really unfortunate that these right-wing people are just harassing members of her family in order to get a headline. But remember, Letitia, you didn't want to answer whether or not your building was a 5-unit building or 4-unit building. You just refused to answer that question. And now you're saying it's all baseless for a headline. So why don't you commit to an answer right here? And the reason for that, you guys, if you aren't aware, is because Letitia James is pretty much caught dead to rights. Again, let me break this down for you guys. We have the 1983 document where she signed with her father as her husband, which is one of her first instances recorded so far of mortgage fraud, of real estate related fraud. Then we have the building in question, which of course has 5 units in it. There's never any paperwork saying that she combined any units to make it a 4-unit, but yet it has documentation related to it filed by Letitia James listing it as a 4-unit, and some documentation that's come out says that she has actually done even fewer units at that particular building. So this woman right here is lying in that particular form. But the Virginia property, I'm glad Letitia James brought it up, is even more clear because we have a 2-page power of attorney letter where Letitia James says in black and white, and it is signed by her, witnessed, by the way, by a deputy attorney general, and in addition to that, it is notarized that she will make Virginia, this particular property, her principal residence. So essentially, she is declaring on a mortgage document, which could advantage her in getting lower interest rates or other perks, that she is moving to the state of Virginia after they're going to do this purchase for this particular property. That is obviously a lie. She did this only weeks before she filed the charges against the evil orange man for supposedly improperly inflating his assets in order to get better terms from financial institutions. But unlike her, Donald Trump had disclosures, as noted in the New York Court of Appeals, that recommended that the banks do their own evaluations of his assets so that they can come to a better determination on what they think it's worth. And by the way, that's exactly what those financial institutions did. It appears in this particular situation that Letitia James just lied and got the benefits from those lies, and she continues to reap the benefits from not having her Brooklyn property listed as a commercial building, a commercial rental property. But the Spectrum News guy doesn't want to put up any of those documents that are signed by Letitia James in her own writing that are available, by the way, in her public filings.
Okay. Well, yeah, as you know, members of the New York press corps are not shy about this stuff. And believe me, we'd be there in the hunt if there was anything to hang on to. I didn't find very much. That's partly why I was asking you about it. Let me move on, though, and ask you about some of the litigation that you are involved in.
So this guy says, listen, the New York Press Corps would be on this. And just to be clear for everybody, if you guys don't understand it, the New York Press Corps is on this. In fact, the only organization that appears to be bending the knee and worshiping the ground that Letitia James walks on is, in fact, Spectrum News. They are going out of their way to ignore it. And this guy right here is like, oh, I looked into it, didn't find anything, but I was just asking you about it because, thank you for the interview, my master Letitia James. I mean, again, it's like she has naked photos of this guy that she's going to release unless this interview goes exactly the way that she wants. It's absurd in every possible way. He says, oh, social media users, why don't you put any of those posts on screen? Why don't you put any of the documents on screen for people to read them? Why don't you actually press Letitia James? I know, by the way, the answer is when she agreed to do this interview, he decided to basically give her all the questions in advance, and then she rewrote them and sent them back to him. And, you know, he's basically her dog right here. But, like, why don't you ask any of the questions or present any of the documents to actually press this issue? Again, this is absurd from top to bottom, ridiculous in every possible way. And what he just said right there makes no sense at all. And again, he hasn't even brought up the Virginia property. He hasn't even brought up the thing with her father in 1983. He only vaguely alluded to the Brooklyn issue when we have the documentation to back that.
The funding for college students, that kind of slipped under the radar. There's so many other different things that are going on.
So now, about 4.5 minutes into an 11-minute interview that's entitled Letitia James Addresses the Allegations, he's switching it up to ask Letitia James what she's doing in terms of lawsuits, what her agenda is, because I guess it's time for Letitia James to go into campaign mode right here. I guess it's time for her to just do propaganda for the majority of this interview on all the great work she's doing as Attorney General. Absurd, insane, ridiculous, but this is where we're at in terms of Spectrum News. And by the way, you should definitely not watch this trash organization. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about one of the most blatant, obvious defense running campaigns for a politician I've ever seen. Till next time.